All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm Joel Shupak, one of the producers at Israel Story, and I am very excited to be talking with basketball legend Amar'e Stoudemire. This conversation is brought to you by Central Synagogue in New York City. So Amar'e had a long career in the NBA, mostly with the Phoenix Suns and the New York Knicks. And also he was actually he was the first player in the NBA to be drafted straight out of high school and then go on to win the Rookie of the Year award, which was the first of many honors. He played in 6 AllStar games and helped Team America win an Olympic medal in 2004. But somewhere in that basketball journey, there was another journey that started to come to life, one that eventually led him to Israel. Today, he lives in Tel Aviv as an Israeli citizen. He plays for Maccabi Tel Aviv in the Israel Premier League. Welcome, Amar'e.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to ask you is, how have you been spending these last few weeks?
Well, it's been a little bit of a challenging situation for me because, we've been on lockdown, and I've been looking forward to enjoying, what Tel Aviv has to offer. And so haven't quite been able to get involved in the community as I would like yet. But for the most part, I'm just doing a lot of Torah learning and then also taking care of my son. My son is taking school online, preparing dinner for him, and really just continuing my quest in the learnings.
Yeah. I imagine it's pretty hard to be cooped up as someone who's spends a lot of time being active and staying fit.
Yeah. It's not easy. I'm such a social guy. I like to be out with friends and communicate and be around. That is pretty much on hold at this moment.
For sure. So how are you staying in shape while you're kind of locked up?
Well, I do a little bit of jogging here and there, a few exercises I try to tap into, but I can't do much, man. It's, the weight room here in my building is not working, and then also we can't go to the facility and train. So I'm trying to figure it out, on the fly just by staying in somewhat of good shape.
Yeah. Well, you seem like you're at least in good spirits. So we're gonna talk about as much as we can, but I want to go way back to when you were first coming up. I read that you went to 5 different high schools. You played basketball in 5 different high schools. When did you really start to know, okay, like, I think I have what it takes to make it to the NBA?
Well, my ambition was to always go to the NBA.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like my freshman year, my 8th grade or freshman year, I wanted to go to high school. So my ambition began to ramp up even more along those time period. A high school situation was very difficult for me because I was making decisions on my own as a 15-year-old. So it wasn't easy to make those so pronounced decisions at a young age. But I eventually graduated from high school. I went to Cypress Creek High School in graduation and was drafted. But, a lot of those times I just stayed focused on my goal and my quest.
Yeah. So I read that you initially were going to not go straight to the NBA. You were going to go to college first, but then you changed your mind. You decided to be drafted. Is that something you ever look back on and think like, oh, maybe I should have done it differently?
Well, no, I mean, not necessarily differently, but I thought about what the college experience would be like. Being on campus, possibly win a national championship, having that experience of being like the big man on campus. I thought about that, and I had a brief experience of that in high school, but the NBA was my goal was set from my freshman year on.
Yeah. I know it's probably hard to imagine, but if you didn't make it as a player, where do you think your life would be right now? Like, what other interests and passions did you have as a teenager?
I'm sure I would have been trying to do something constructively as far as like I would continue my schooling. I'm sure I would have got a solid job to start a career to take care of my family. But that was the idea, man, to start a career eventually and to start a family.
Yeah. Was there a moment in the first year, the first couple of years in the NBA where you like really for the first time felt like, oh, I belong here. Like this is the league for me?
Yeah, man. I mean, my first game.
Yeah? Tell me about it.
I feel like I was ready to go. I mean, my first 10 games, I wasn't starting. I was the 9th pick in the draft, so I had to work my way up to the starting position. But that first game, when I did get my time, I felt like this is where I always belonged. And then from that game on, that rookie year began to just flow by as if I've always been there, and that's how I was able to win that Rookie of the Year award.
Yeah. So I know this is a big question, but looking back on your long career in the NBA, are there a couple like key moments that you kind of remember back to and really kind of cherish as like real highlights of your career there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of highlights I had in my career. I mean, just being drafted is a very pronounced highlight. And then, my rookie year of these games that I've had and these plays that I've made throughout my rookie year, that's still now legendary plays that, the history of the NBA still those plays back as a moment in history. And then going through my career, the era in Phoenix was remarkable. Changing the game of basketball, creating a small ball situation with us there, and then also taking that talent to now New York City, the biggest city in the world, the most marketable city in the world. I mean, there's so much happening, so many lights, and so that aura of like celebrity status began to ramp up times 10. And that moment of signing with the Knicks in my first year there was, those are my highlights of my career.
Yeah. So now I really want to talk about, sorry, did I miss something?
I was saying, not to mention the times I played with you basketball in the AllStar games. I mean, AllStar games was like an enjoyment, right? It's a family deal. Family comes, parents, everyone comes to town, to that city. They watch you in the photo, take all the photos for like the pre-AllStar game. They go into all the festivities, seeing Michael Jordan, seeing LeBron James, seeing all these players. And then we play in the AllStar game. That experience is amazing. And then Olympics, playing the Olympics was something great. Representing your country, getting fitted for your suits, the ring of, you going around the ring of honor. You have like, the national, every national team is there. It's a beautiful experience.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about shift the focus to basically the whole reason why you're, invited to this event, which is your connection to Israel. So where does that story begin?
Man, that story began when I was a young boy. I was maybe like 12 years old or so. Mm-hmm. My mother was always a very spiritual lady, and so she was into the Bible more, and she was starting to learn more about the B'nai Israel, and she was starting to figure out like, okay, well, we are from the children of Israel, so we should start keeping the laws of Moses. And so I was like, all right, sounds good to me. I mean, I was always like also into the Bible, and I was also like focusing in on the truths and of what took place throughout the scriptures. And so from that point on, I started to learn throughout my teenage years a little bit, right? So to learn a little bit.
And where were you like looking to for guidance, or for where were you finding information, finding things to learn?
Well, I will learn with my mother's husband, and we'll read the Torah. We read the Torah. We go over like what does kosher mean? Eating clean animals. What does that mean? We go over like what is the Shabbat? What does that mean? How do we start keeping Shabbat? We start going over all these details, and so that propelled me to learn more as I got into the NBA, and I started meeting friends who were on the same page. I had the same quest of learning. Then I met with a few of my Jewish friends in New York, and that is when I discovered the understanding of Judaism, and then that's when I started to get involved in Judaism.
Yeah, and tell me about the first time you came to Israel and what that was like for you.
When I traveled to Israel in 2010, I think it was, I was on my quest of like my Hebraic roots, trying to figure out what that meant, and I wanted to see the land of Israel and connect all the dots that I've been learning. I read the Torah. I went to Arizona State for summer school, so I had these human geography books. I had different, and so I would make sure that all the stories inside the Torah correlates with history, and so therefore I knew that everything that I was learning in Torah was factual. So then I wanted to travel to Israel and see all the facts that I've been learning. And so when I came here in 2010 with my family, that is when I fell in love with the land of Israel.
What surprised you about Israel on that first trip?
I mean, the land itself. I mean, for me, where I was more captivated about is the fact of all the history that
Hmm.
took place. You know, all the prophets. You know, all the biblical stories of Moshe and then with Joshua. You know, bringing the tablets over to the land of Israel, and then just going through that entire timeline of what took place in Israel, and then just being here was like, wow. I mean, the Bible, like the Torah, is now 3D. I can actually see it.
Yeah. Was there like a specific place or like an archaeological site or the Western Wall or like some specific place where you like really felt a strong connection?
Yeah, I mean, it was the old city.
Hmm.
The old city, I felt the strongest connection. Just looking at the old city, being there, soaking up the energy.
Yeah.
Um, that was the most captivating moment for me, being that's Mount Zion, the history of Mount Zion. Just the history that took place there was just captivating.
For sure. So that was in 2010. Several years passed before you actually came and lived here for a period of time. How did that all come about? How did you end up um, playing in Israel for the first time?
Well, when the world found out about my Hebrew roots, about me being Jewish, and so when I traveled to Israel, it was more of a private trip for me and my family, and I didn't want anyone to think that I was, Jewish. I wanted to keep everything kind of low under the radar. I didn't want a lot of people to know about my learning and about my, my customs on how I'm carrying myself. And so I traveled here for a quiet, simple family trip. But when the word got out about me being in Israel, and then they start researching like my Hebraic roots,
Yeah.
and then they ask, am I Jewish or not? And at the time, it's like, if for African Americans, for me, like our heritage was cut off during slavery. So the only way we can connect ourselves to Torah or through to B'nai Israel is through Torah. So that's the only way I was able to somewhat find my Hebraic roots by dissecting the timelines of Torah. And so at that time, no one really knew this. And then
Like no one
once
knew
the
that
work,
you were on this path and learning
right,
about this kind of stuff. Okay.
correct.
Hmm.
And then once I traveled to Israel, then the word got out. And
Yeah.
so two
It's
years,
hard for you to keep a low profile here.
yeah, I couldn't keep a low, man. And
You're like literally a
so,
foot taller than everyone.
yeah, without a doubt, man, without a doubt. 2 years later, I got a call from a friend of mine saying, hey, there's a team in Israel. It's not a moneymaker. It's only if you love Israel, want to give back to the country. I was like, all right, what's talk to me. What's the deal? He said, there's a team in Jerusalem. And I said, there's a league in Israel? I thought all I knew was Maccabi at the time because they played in the EuroLeague.
Hmm.
And NBA, we watch EuroLeague, we scout EuroLeague players. So I didn't know there was even a competitive league in Israel at the time. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, he's like, if you want to invest in the team, you can. There's opportunities now. I was like, hey, I'm always willing to give back to Israel for sure. And so I invested into the team, and then shortly after, man, I ended up coming out to play for the team.
Yeah. Did any of your like friends back home or teammates like think you had kind of lost your mind a little bit?
I'm sure people think that, man, back at home. I'm sure people think that here in Israel. Like this guy's learning yeshivas. This guy's going over the top with the learning. He's lost his mind. What is going on? But truly, I actually found it, man. I found like a correlation with God that I've been searching for.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I wanted to ask you about so you played for the Jerusalem. You played for
Sorry.
the. That's all right. That's all right. So you played for the Jerusalem Hapoel for 2 years, and you were. I think I saw somewhere you were studying in the yeshiva in the morning and then playing games in the evening. Um, I'm wondering if like how you kind of reconciled what seems to be like very kind of contradictory identities there. Like was that difficult for you in some way?
No, man. I think that's a situation that's been like somewhat of a dilemma. Is that
Hmm.
you can still enjoy life and also be religious. You find your ways. You find your ways within like the structure of God to still have fun. So
Hmm.
I was able to still play, basketball at a high level. We won a championship that year. I was learning at the yeshivas. I was learning with kavusas. It's all about, finding time and the motivation to want to accomplish your goals.
Yeah. So this is maybe you might think of this as kind of a silly question, but I'm wondering if you feel like there's any connection between like Jewish learning or Jewish philosophy and basketball. Like I've heard people talk about how the philosophy of baseball is, very American or very democratic, like everyone gets a chance at bat. Or when you play baseball, you learn how to handle defeat really well because even if you're really good, you're like failing all the time. So I'm wondering, like, first, what lessons do you think basketball has that are unique from other sports? And if some way that connects to what you think it means to be Jewish.
Well, basketball to me is a sport that allows you to play mano a mano while playing a team game, right? I can go one-on-one against my guy. I can score on him. I can dunk on him. I can make certain moves around him. But yet and still, I have to keep my eyes on my teammates and defenders. It's a strategy game. It reminds me of war. It reminds me of like preparation for like a battle, right? I feel like Torah is the same way. Torah itself, the laws, the mitzvahs of the Torah allows us to prepare for battle. And the battle is the evil inclination. So we have to be able to just prepare ourselves for that battle. So you can use it as a similar structure. And it goes with learning also. Practicing every day, getting my shots up to perfect my shot. It's like with me learning how to read Hebrew. Like I feel like a kindergartner, man, trying to read Hebrew. It's very frustrating, but I feel like the more I practice, then I can make my shot. And the more I shoot, then the more I can score. So it's like the same correlation with learning. And also reading Hebrew.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Great answer. How is your Hebrew these days?
It's not bad. I mean, I can speak Hebrew pretty well.
Yeah, you could order a falafel and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you? What kind of food do you love to eat in Israel?
Oh man, I love the asado, the steaks, the meat's great here, man. I love the meat here in Israel.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about how you're no longer playing with Jerusalem Hapoel. Now you're playing for their rival team in Tel Aviv, Maccabi Tel Aviv. I feel like a lot of the fans in Jerusalem were maybe a little surprised by that decision. Was that a hard decision for you to make?
Actually, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision because I actually wanted to. Last year we had a great year last year. Mm-hmm. And I think I had one of my better years in Europe, according to the stats. And so I was looking forward to picking up where I left off. But negotiations wasn't even close to being fair. So I was like, hey, I'm forced to go to China. So I went to China for 2 months. I got to China. It was a great atmosphere. I love the city. I love the country. I love, being there and playing in the Chinese league. But I was getting very homesick, and I was having a hard time with adjusting to being away from my family for so long. So I went back home, and I was training there home in Miami. And before I went to China, I called after the season last year. I called Jerusalem. We sat down and had a meeting about negotiating. Before I went to China, I called Jerusalem about, hey, still willing to come back and play. And then after I left China, I called Jerusalem. At that time, they were looking for a small forward. And so I got a call from Maccabi. And I was like, hey, man, I was telling Jerusalem, listen, most of these Israeli players, I think I'm one of the top Israeli players, in the league. So I'm not sure why I'm not back in Jerusalem. But hey, Maccabi called me, and I went to Tel Aviv.
Yeah, and were you living in Jerusalem when you were playing for Jerusalem, or were you living in Tel Aviv?
Yeah. I live in Jerusalem. I mean, I'm Yerushalmi, man. I love the fact of living in Jerusalem.
You're still in Jerusalem?
I live in Tel Aviv.
Oh, you live in Tel Aviv. Okay.
To learn, I meet with friends, but because of COVID-19, I haven't been able to really enjoy or go travel around Tel Aviv as much as I would like.
Yeah. So we just have a couple more minutes. But one of the questions I wanted to ask is, I imagine a lot of the people who are listening right now, watching right now, are kids, and they're maybe have big basketball dreams or other sports dreams. What would you like to tell them as someone who's had a long career, who's kind of had, you know, dreams and fantasies of making it, and by all accounts you know totally did. So what do you want to tell those kids?
Well, I think the most important factor is from a basketball standpoint is always play. Go out to the park and play. Play as much as you can. Play every day if you like. Train when you can. But playing every day allows you to work on your creativity. Even if you're going to the park by yourself, you know, it allows you to work on your creativity. It allows you to expand your game. You think about different moves, or you try all kind of trick shots and whatever. You know, those situations help you a lot. And then also playing against someone, playing one-on-one, playing two-on-two, whatever those games are. Just play a lot of basketball. And then when you get with your team, learn the fundamentals. Get the fundamentals down first, and the game will evolve eventually.
Yeah. Are any of your kids following in your footsteps? Getting really into basketball? Yeah.
Yeah, my son, he's 13. He plays basketball. He's also a baseball player. So I'm not forcing him to play, you know, basketball. It's something that if he loves to do it, then hey, great. My youngest son, Elijah, he plays basketball, but he's only 6. You know, yeah. So there's no pressure at a young age. If they love it, then I love it. You know, so that's how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's the right attitude. Speaking of kids, I saw that you at some point were organizing these kind of basketball camps that were bringing Jews and Palestinian kids together to kind of play and meet each other. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wanted to get that started, man, because I felt like it was important to bring a level of peace to the land of Israel. Israel is such a peaceful place, and the people here are so peaceful and welcoming. And I wanted to, with the game of basketball, what I've noticed, what I've learned, is that I've been able to connect with all cultures because of the game of basketball. I mean, I can honestly say that basketball brought me to Israel, to play in Israel. You know, it took me to Athens, Greece. It took me to, you know, Serbia. It took me all over the world. And I met people and became friends from people from different cultures that I, as a kid, never really thought of much. And so I figured, why not have a peace camp where I can invite all the kids. I invited the Israelite kids, I invited Jewish kids, and I invited Palestinian kids all to the camp to play basketball. And it was a beautiful, beautiful setup.
That's awesome. So I just have one more question for you. Then unfortunately we have to wrap up. I wish I could chat with you all day, but I'm curious about just like kind of your identity now. Like, do you think of yourself as Israeli? Do you still feel very American?
Yeah, I mean, the more I learn to speak the language, I feel more Israeli. I'm communicating pretty well with the people in the native language. So that's my idea, but I consider myself American Israeli.
Yeah. And are you planning on staying in Israel for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to find a place here. Once I figure out, you know, the law of the land, basically, I'm going to find a place here, and I'll be living between America and Israel.
All right. Well, Amar'e, it was a total pleasure talking to you. I really, really appreciate it. Toda rabah.
Happy Independence Day.
All right. And just a reminder to our listeners, check out our Facebook page, Instagram, and subscribe to the Israel Story podcast, wherever podcasts are found. All right.
Nice.
Take care.
Later.